The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
Alrighty, it's Tuesday, the 6th day of April, 2021. Welcome to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House One Communications and Lindo's. I'm Jamal Hartman, along with Carla Zul. Thanks for making us part of your daily routine. If you're watching online, share the link. If you're on Facebook, start a watch party. If you're on Twitter, retweet it. If you're watching on Channel 82 or listening on the Full 100 radio station, call someone up, let them know we're on. Just get the conversation out there to your network. And don't forget, this part, folks, is important. Like and engage with us. Another good one today as well. We're supposed to be having the Minister of Education, the Honorable Diallo Rabain, on. So we'll see what happens with that. The daily play is a remember when. So this is some good history for you all today. It's a good one. I'm gonna just say Carla's not gonna get this right.
But here's the weird part. You said for you, Bo, you didn't even say for me first. Like, I'm the one that has to attempt the answer. You just wrote me off and went straight to the audience. All right, cool.
And in about 50 minutes, you'll find out why. It wasn't personal. It was not personal at all. But look, another day. And, I was looking through, and no disrespect, this is no disrespect to the Royal Gazette, but I was looking at some headlines today and something caught my eye. I'm not trying to make a conversation about it, but I did not know the Royal Gazette was $2 now. I realized that. I don't know when newspapers became that expensive, but I came across that. I was like, dang, $2 for the newspaper. But yeah, $2.
Remember, it used to be 50 cents.
Well, that I was gonna say that. I'm like, I remember when they were, but I didn't want to sound like I'm your age. But
yeah. From Miss Smith shop, you're not so you go up the hill and go get a paper from Miss Smith, saying you used to put your 50 cents on the counter and get your paper. Good old days.
Remember what they used to call it, the morning paper or something? Like old people would say, go get me the, and I used to always wonder, is there an evening paper? Like, why they say the morning paper? It's only one daily paper. But well, you're much older than me, Carla.
Not that much in it.
Well, yeah. I'm 40 this year, so I'm actually catching you. Hold on. How old are you turned this year? 47 or 48?
47.
47. So
in a few weeks.
We'll actually be in the same decade. Yeah. So I'm catching you up. But no, I remember they used to say, go get me a morning paper, and it'll be like evening time if they forgot to get it. And I just never understood that. So if anyone in the audience can help me, were there morning and afternoon and evening papers back in the day?
Back in the day, there used to be evening papers. I don't know, in Bermuda, I'm assuming yes, like way back when, but that's where it came from.
Okay. Well, in the morning's paper, I came across Dexter Smith, the editor, post. He posted, what the front page looks like, and top story underneath the other obvious $2. Well, I didn't pay the $2 to read this, by the way, folks, but it's a headline and it says continue on to page 2. So I guess the $2 for $2 you can continue on to page 2.
Anyway, you're silly. No, that doesn't mean that.
Well, I mean, how you
they give you a screenshot of what's on the front page.
Yeah, and if you want to see what's on page 2 in the paper, don't you have to pay the $2?
No, you go online.
No. The paper version's different from online. Duh. Hence 2 different editors. So look, U.S. CDC no travel to Bermuda. So it looks like the United States, the consulate has responded to Bermuda's recent uptick in COVID cases, and a blow for the islands. A quote, and a blow for the island's record of low COVID-19 numbers. The CDC adjusted Bermuda status from level 2, moderate, to level 4, its highest designation. Yeah, so the borders are open, but yeah. Why you say
We, the proverbial we, are doing it to ourselves. I mean, I'm here in the UK. I want to come home, and I feel that I would be more unsafe in Bermuda than I would be in the UK. And that really bothers me. So I'm hoping by summer it's quelled and going back down. But it's scary because Bermuda's so small. I mean, look at our neighborhood. How many houses are next door to each other? Like, you sneeze, you can hear me. You know what I mean? It's kind of daunting. So we, as a collective, need to get it together so that Bermuda can be once again a comfortable place to travel to. Because it's not the people coming in; it's the people who are there.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm looking at it from another perspective as well. Like, if the borders are open in hopes that people travel to the island and pump money into the economy, doesn't this hurt Bermuda a bit?
Of course.
So, I mean, I'm not saying close the borders. I'm just saying, like, I mean, it's one of those things. A politician told me many years ago. We were talking about Bermuda going independent, right? And this politician basically said that, well, Bermuda's independence isn't going to be a matter of whether the people want it or not. When Britain finds no use for us, then we're going to be on our own. Now, I liken that to this situation. We can leave the borders open all we want, but if the people we're trying to, get to come to Bermuda are told not to travel, then,
But again, it comes back to culpability. We can, on one hand, complain, not like the rules, not comply, and they're not like the result. That's what I think. If people don't understand what they need to understand, everybody who takes a decision, and it's on you to however you want to conduct yourself, not wear a mask, not social distance, have sneak parties, whatever. That's on you. But there is a consequence. So we have to decide, are we gonna shoot our own selves in the financial foot? Or are we gonna at least try to be open-minded and say, you know what? I may not believe in all of this, but let me see what happens if I comply with things. Let's see if things change and get better.
Shikarena says it could hurt because Bermuda was promoted to be safe for remote workers during this time. Well, yeah. I remember we were always talking about like not reading the room, and I mean, Bermuda was promoted. I saw many hoteliers and tourism people saying this, like, we're safe, we're this, we're that. How does this? I guess my question is, how does this impact Bermuda's ability to attract the investment that they want? And when I say investment, I'm just talking about tourists. Miriam Simmons says, people say they are bored being home. So yeah, the numbers reflect that, unfortunately. And then Dr. Seaman says, can't tell peeps what to do. And I think, people were asking early on, how were places like China and others, how were they able to do so easily? Like, how were they able to reduce the numbers so easily? And the answer is easy. It's easier to get people in different countries to comply. And this reflects, and I know, look, I'm one of a few that fought against conscription. So I know all about not necessarily having rights, but this reflects on Bermudians and the privilege, This really reflects our privilege, a privilege I don't think that we realize that we have. Yeah. So it's an interesting time. Going back to the paper, I'm not sure if Renee Sherlin Simmons works there, but online you get all the pages. Well, tell that to the folks that see stuff in the paper daily and try to send it to me online. You might want to check on that if you work there. Yeah, it's not. I mean, there's times I've been in the newspaper and it's not been online. So check on that. Hope they're not letting you down. Charles, I thought Mid-Ocean and Bermuda Sun were only weekend paper. Well, yeah, Fridays, I thought. But then again, Charles, you may be younger than some others as well. I know that's hard to believe.
It's on the road today.
Didn't the economists say the government will have to deal with the virus spread and then the economy? Both can't be stabilized together. I thought he said that, could be wrong. Economist, I believe she's talking about Craig Simmons. Dr. Seaman says, me stay home anyway, work from home anyway, only take mom on drives. She stays in car unless we go where there's plenty of space. Well, that brings me to another question for the audience today. Here's the next question. Do you trust the government and experts with their handling of COVID? That's the question.
In Bermuda or period?
Period. Just
well, I think from the outside of the country looking in, with Bermuda, where Bermuda's concerned, is that I think that the public is now getting tired of I don't know the answer or I'm not sure, and I think that that's what's breeding a distrust of the or mistrust of the information. Is it accurate? I think when people see authorities, on a screen, they expect them to be knowledgeable. You have to be within reason, but I can see it where I observe the comments and people are tired. Worldwide, me being in the UK, I think the messages sometimes vary. And I think because in the beginning, when people were trying to figure out what exactly this was, I think that was also a seed for mistrust. We had Devon on, who's a nurse, and he was saying how originally they were treated with Devon Adams, remember the nurse that came on the Daily Hour?
Oh, Devon, he was saying, in the US.
Right. And he was saying how they were treating corona symptoms with vitamin C, for example. And now they're saying that may not work. So I think people are not being able to look and see that it's a process and things change and shift, and they want answers now. And if you can't give that, it increases the lack of credibility in their eyes.
I mean, here's the thing. I stated this on numerous occasions on this show. I do believe that in a democracy, people are going to question governments, and they are going to question experts, just authority, period. It's well within their right. Look, I question everything. I mean, it annoys most people, but that's it. I don't do it to be annoying. I do it for clarity. It's too easy. It's really too easy to just do as you're told and expect people to know what's in our best interest. I understand why people are questioning so many things as it relates to COVID, because the information from the beginning was contradictory. And I think Carla makes a great point when Devon Adams, the Bermudian nurse who works in the US, was on. He said when the virus first came out, when it first happened, they didn't know what to do. So at one minute they were saying this, the next minute they were saying that. But when you're dealing with people whose minds, run 100 miles per hour, they're really developing a distrust for you at that time. And that distrust comes from, well, hold on, you said this last week. Now you're telling me this. You said originally mask won't help. Now you're saying we need to wear mask. Look, just yesterday, the Texas Rangers had 40,000 plus people. 40,000 plus people. Now, what's that? 24,000 off Bermuda's population in a stadium for a baseball game. Recommending wearing mask, but if you look at some of the pictures, most people weren't wearing mask.
Did you see that? I was like, wow. But they said they'll take the calculated risk. And I think it's going to come to that where my daughter and I, we have this conversation all the time. It's going to come to a point where people are going to have to take a decision of what degree of risk they want to live in. And if like with that game, if people just don't want to wear a mask and they're willing to take the risk to get sick, it's on them. For me personally, I'm just not willing to test the odds. I'm not.
Dr. Seaman says, I trust that I cannot handle jail. LOL. I'm also a biologist who's not trusting people and their care of this situation. Kathy Brumby says, lots of questions, not/never answered. Miriam Simmons says, too many unanswered questions. We have Robert Durham, Carla.
I think people should look at what's happening in the US and not want Bermuda to go through the same thing. Let's be real.
Yeah, but Robert, that's the problem. A lot of people see what's happening in the. We just use the example of Texas Rangers baseball game. These people don't see the problem that you may be seeing in the US. People, and let's be honest, where are you talking about in the US? Because when politics is involved, which unfortunately it has been with COVID, some people are saying, well, we kept our state open or we opened it back up and the economy is doing better, and then other people are exposing that's not true, and then people are saying that this governor or that governor lied about numbers. Like, what are we talking about when we talk about the US? We have to speak about specifics, because at the end of the day, we hear numbers, but percentages. Let's look at percentages. What are the percentages? Is the US really that bad? Is it that good? What is it? And I think that's what we have to really, get to, and the questions that we need to ask. Katora Horton, Parent Chief Carla.
Considering this is a global effort, yes, I'm trusting, but put the CMO and, for people that don't know, Chief Medical Officer, and people from the Department of Health in front of focus more impactful than seeing politicians every night.
Deborah Leah Joel Bell says people just have to chill and everyone protect their own interest and use common sense. Experts still don't know it all. This is still a learning experience. Just admit it. This is the comment of the day right here. Like, this is I appreciate that. This is probably the easiest way to say it for everyone. Just chill and
logical.
As you're saying, like, look, let's just use, I don't even like the term common sense, because I'm not quite sure I want the sense of the common man the way we've been acting.
Touche.
Seriously. But I get you, and thank you for that. Kathy Bromby says, I trust myself to stay home. I've been out 3 times since January because CDC flip-flops. And this is why I say it's okay to question the experts. I think what needs to happen is, I hate the term professional and professionalism, but the experts have to understand their role. One of the things I appreciate, but at the same time I don't think is helpful, is the labeled experts feeling the need to respond to everything. I feel like, the same way I feel about governments, I don't care for politicians telling me what they're doing well. You shouldn't have to tell people what you're doing well. Why? Because if you're doing your job well, the people will feel it. Yeah. So that's how I feel about the experts and how this is going. Like, you shouldn't have to continuously tell people. They should feel it and see it in the work that's taking place. Sean Smith, Carla.
It's concerning that governments promote vaccines from companies that require exemption from being sued and haven't even been approved by the FDA. That made me sit up in the UK. I remember that. Yeah, I agree.
Rick Olson says the scary thing is we have no idea when this will end, and will we ever meet the 70% vaccination rate? Amanda Kelly, unfortunately, there's a 4th strain hitting in the news, and they don't know if the vaccine will be entirely effective. This truly is worldwide uncertainty. Personally, I choose to trust God and use common sense, mask around others. Kay Williams, Carla, let's go through a couple more.
The science has been constantly evolving, and it continues to evolve as we continue to learn more and more. We have to be flexible and not have a fixed mindset.
Another sensible comment, Katora Horton Parenti says, is as the situation changes, the recommendations change. As we learn more, we have different recommendations. This mess is only a year old. Some of this is trial and error. And I think that's how it has to be communicated to people. Because again, we go back to Davon Adams, even Dr. Roden, some of the doctors we've had on, when they speak about this, I get why people are going to have questions, because hold on, you said this last week or this last year or this, and people don't forget. People write that. Look, one of the things Mr. Marshall said when he was on talking about Bermuda's against the draft, and it's funny, but it's not. But
the notebook.
If you said something about conscription, Mr. Marshall wrote in his notebook the date, time, who you were. And if you said something different 5 years from now, that woman, Kim Wilson, she's up here talking about health, but this is what she said back then. She's not about black people and people. She's about the law. Like, this is what you're doing. I will say to this, though, as human beings, we evolve too. And the way we feel today is probably not the way we may feel tomorrow, next week, or the year after. So it's easy to hold things against people, but we have to understand that if we evolve, we have to understand that others will as well. We do have a lot more comments. Let's go to one more comment, Charles, Carla, and then we'll hit the news break. Then be back with the Minister of Education, Diallo Rabain. Go ahead.
Regardless of what one thinks about this, if your loved one loses their life because of it, it instantly becomes real. In that case, percentages don't matter.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. We're going to take a quick news break and a good conversation coming up. Some things have been happening in the Ministry of Education, and the minister is stopping by to update us. We'll try to get through as many comments as possible, questions. Carla, over to you.
The Bermuda Police Service wishes to inform the public that the individual featured in the video clip making threats against the public and police officers has been contacted and spoken with. Having engaged with him, the Bermuda Police Service says it believes his comments were misplaced and unintended. He is currently being provided support and care by authorities in the UK and has expressed remorse for his actions. The Bermuda Police Service has also spoken with the man's relatives on island, who have explained the reasons for his behavior. Based on its investigations and information provided, the Bermuda Police Service is satisfied the individual does not pose a threat and there is no need for the public to be alarmed. Popcorn is an amazing food and a delightful treat. From the traditional buttered popcorn to the colorful candy popcorn bowls handed out on Halloween, this hot popped corn treat has found its way into every avenue of our culture. You can even find strong popcorn garlands adorning Christmas trees during the winter holidays. But this is a day dedicated to that very special form of popcorn, a favorite of people everywhere for over 100 years. So today we'll observe Caramel Popcorn Day. There is something about combining the buttery sugar goodness of caramel with the light, airy nature of popcorn that creates an amazing flavor combination you just can't stop eating. So take the opportunity to try this special treat, even if you just go out and grab a bag from your favorite grocery store. Turning to weather, the temperature in Bermuda is expected to reach a high of 67. Dallas, Texas will see a high of 80, and Nottingham, UK, a high of 43. Don't forget, our resident master of political nicknames, Jamal, is being held hostage, but only until April 10th. Shall we save him or shall we sink him? You decide, but either way, let's contribute to a good cause and participate in the annual Bermuda Sloop Foundation's fundraising event, Pirates of Bermuda. Visit www.bermudasloop.org for further details. That's your Daily Hour news break.
And I just know, people, you love me, so you're not gonna let me get wet. I know you love me, so take care of your boy. You mentioned political.
Did you like?
I don't have a nickname for the Minister of Education, so I may have to find one.
You'll have one soon.
Yeah, we're gonna have to come up with a nickname for him. Real quickly on the popcorn thing before we go to break. I love popcorn. Anybody that knows me, I'll eat popcorn all day. But friends, let me say something. You don't put what goes on candy on popcorn, caramel. No. That's not for us. It's for them.
It's for us with strong teeth. Speak for yourself, mommy.
Coming back with the Minister of Education again. Don't have a nickname for him yet, but we'll think of one. We'll ask him what he likes to be called. Cool. Be right back.
Mom's celebrating her 70th birthday next month. Have you noticed her age is catching up with her?
Yeah. Plus, she's having a hard time getting up and around like she's used to. I would sure hate to see her fall.
At Medical House Limited, we can help make life situations easier. We have electric beds, motorized scooters, bath stools, walkers, you name it.
Mom's been real good to us. We'll get her birthday and Christmas gifts from Medical House.
Medical House has relocated next to the Dendy Town Field, number 6 Bakery Lane, Pembroke. Telephone 292-3622.
This month, John Barrett & Son bring us a premium thirst quencher from North Carolina, Le Bleu Ultra Purified Water. Many other bottled waters use reverse osmosis to reach an acceptable level of purity. Le Bleu uses a 5-step purification process which includes fractional vapor compression distillation and ozonation, assuring purity and a unique, appealing flavor. Consumer testimony repeatedly praises the taste of Le Bleu compared to the other brands, and this, along with superior purity, makes Le Bleu a must-try. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
Alrighty, welcome back to the big show. She's Carla Zul. I'm Jamal Hartman. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by Medical House One Communications, Lindo's, and our friends over at Channel 82, where you can also watch this and many other locally produced shows if you have One Communications cable. Without further ado, let's bring on our guest for the day, the Honorable Minister Diallo Rabain from the Ministry of Education. Welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning, Jamal. Good morning, caller. Can you hear me properly?
We hear you very well,
Okay,
sir.
great.
Real quick, before we get into the serious topic conversation, do you like caramel on your popcorn?
I'll have to agree with Carla on this one. Caramel and popcorn does taste pretty good. Come on, man. You never had Cracker Jacks? That was caramel and popcorn?
Yeah, and I didn't like it. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. I was one of those people. Remember, I don't know when it started. It could have been before my time, but yeast popcorn really took over for me. So I just never got into the Cracker Jacks movement.
No.
I mean, I take the prizes in the box. That's it. But all right. So we'll definitely have he agrees with Carla. So we're gonna have to definitely come up with a nickname for you. You know,
Say you again, got one now.
I'm agreeing with Carla. It's just not kosher. But let's get into the conversation. The government of Bermuda, via the Ministry of Education, you guys have been active. A lot going on. So let's just be honest. People are distracted by the pandemic. So a lot of stuff that's been going on is just it's not under the radar, but it would seem so. But speak to us a bit about the Education Amendment Act 2021 and what it means for public education.
Okay. And in some cases, you are correct. It has gone under the radar, but that hasn't stopped us from continuing to reach out, continuing to get feedback from the general public. What the Education Act Amendment 2021 does, it starts us on the pathway of the phasing out of the middle school system and moving back to a two-tier system. Where we have started with is this particular act will introduce the signature strands within our senior schools and also change the age in which you attend senior school by 1 year. So what this effectively means is the M3 year starting in 2022, September 2022, will become the S1 of the senior school, creating a senior school level of S1 through S5. Going back to the system that we had previously of 5 years of high school. So that is what the legislation actually accomplishes. It's a small piece of legislation. Only about 4 clauses were changed, but those were 4 important clauses. 1, reducing the age in which you enter into high school, and 2, for creating the pathway on which signature programs can be created and utilized within our senior schools and moving forward. So in translation to those out there, in simple language, any child that's in M1 this school year will be technically S1 when they reach what would have been their M3 year in 2 years' time.
But Minister, question. Now, I was a product of the 5-year high school tier, right? Primary and then high. And then when middle schools were introduced, and then people called for it to be taken away, the response was often, it's not possible. It can't be done. Why is it possible now?
Well, I understand what you're referring to, Carla, is the Hopkins report. The Hopkins reports did state that it was a mistake for us to move to the 3-tier system because it just did not suit the Bermudian learning experience. But it would be too disruptive to make that turnaround at that point. So what we've done is we very, very carefully, and we spent literally the last 2.5 years looking at how can we start that process where it is not as disruptive as it was moving from the 3-tier system. And so this is why we're starting here with this move in 2022. And then after 2022, you'll see a gradual move for the rest of the stuff to do. The reason it couldn't be done is when we looked at when education reform was looked at and how it was done in the first instance, it was very disruptive. It was very disruptive, and the way it actually was done, it left huge gaps in between the learning process, which still has not been adequately closed. So what we're doing is moving back, but doing it very, very gradually. So there isn't that much disruption as what we had before, and people get used to different concepts prior to moving on to the next phase of the education reform.
So, how has the response been from the public so far?
The response has been phenomenal from the public, especially when it comes to our Learning First program, which is the part of the program which is charged with looking at what the new curriculum would look like, what it is that is happening in our schools in terms of learning, and how we can make that better. And that is because this particular process that we have chosen involves the community giving as much input as they want. And so it's if you want to be able to give input, you can join Learning First at learningfirstbda.com. Sign up, you'll receive the regular newsletters. You'll be able to participate in what's going on by giving ideas, looking at what's happening, and giving some direction on what you think is working, not working. But it's I believe the concept is it's well liked and welcomed, because as we've talked about, people have been talking about middle school for a number of years. And the fact that one of the biggest issues with middle school was the distrust of the system. And that is something that we've, no matter what has been tried, no matter what they've tried to do to turn around, is the concept of middle school is something that was never bought into and continues to be this way. And we see it with our data. The cohort of P6s that leave and go into middle school, the numbers drop by about 22%. And they either go private school, homeschool, something else during that middle school era. And then that same cohort, when it reaches the high school, it actually comes back up by about 15 to 16%. And so our parents, no middle school, they're like, I'm not sending my child to government middle schools. They disappear, but they come back. And so we recognize that, and we recognize that there has to be we want to put in a different system that the public has asked for. And so this is what we're doing with this. So the response has been phenomenal on this. And we haven't seen that many people argue vehemently against what's happening. People just want to know more details of what's happening as we move forward, really, in this process.
Minister, but one of the overall criticisms of the Ministry of Education is that it keeps changing, and there've been so many ministers. Of course, you've been there a while, but to some, the consultation process just seems like it's a political exercise. Why is the public feedback so important to this new process?
The public feedback is critical to this process because of exactly what you just said. There's been this history, and and I call it that the public has gotten punch drunk with people standing up and saying, we're going to do something different in education. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And the way some of these things have been implemented, it gets to you cannot implement major change like this unless you have buy-in. What I do like about Bermuda is we're a close-knit society, and we're very loath to doing things differently. And so people say that we're scared of change, and I don't believe that we're scared of change. I believe people are scared of not being in control as they remember being in control. And so what we have to do is ease people into these things and show them why we need to do something or why we want to do something. And so we spend an inordinate amount of time asking for public feedback, asking for public to come and say, this is what we've. So what we say is we ask for the feedback, we compile it, we then say, well, here's what you've said, and this is the direction we want, but we want you to opine even more. And so developing products and developing change in that way brings the people into the change that we're trying to put forth. And so we don't have that problem where it's like, okay, why are you doing this? I don't like what you're doing, so I'm not going to participate in it. Because if you're the one who has been a part and parcel of developing that change, you then have some skin in the game. And so when we talk about our strategic plan 2022, It was developed with thousands of pieces of input from the public, because we recognize that in order for education to succeed in Bermuda, everybody actually has to buy into what that change is, versus us just, hiring some expert who says this is what you should do, and then we just try and implement it without actually looking at how it's going to truly affect and how people will really feel about it.
I hear you about the public consultation. I remember one of the most recent pieces of legislation that tried to get passed, and people were saying, well, the government said that a lot of things included were from public consultation, and then public was like, that's not true, due to the weak bill that eventually didn't pass the Senate. I'm speaking about the cannabis bill. That said, I mean, this is just not overnight, but why should the public trust the Ministry of Education to get this right after all of these years? And not just education, but just looking at some of the recent things. Why should they trust that the information they share will be used? Why should they trust that the government is actually gonna get public education right with this amendment?
I believe the public should trust, first and foremost, that, I want the public to trust me, but personally, I have stake in the game. My child is in public school, and I have a vested interest from that perspective. However, I also have a vested interest in seeing Bermuda succeed. If education fails, Bermuda fails. And if Bermuda fails, we all fail. And so this is why it's critical for us to get this right. And it's critical for us to do this slowly and very methodically in the way that we've done it. So I asked the public, and you're right, Jamal, there are going to be people who, no matter what you do, no matter, you can cure cancer and they'll complain about you putting doctors out of a job. No matter what you do, someone will find something wrong. The idea is to find what that happy medium is to support what the bulk of the people really want to happen within Bermuda. When it comes to public education, we have to stop looking at it and trying our very level best to compare it hook, line, and sinker to what private schools do. What the private schools do, and this is no knock on them, because this is what they do, and they do it very well. They have a system that works, and then they find students that fit that system. And if you're able to do that, more power to you, because that means you're going to have a system, you're going to have an operation that creates a type of student that you need to create. In the public school system, where it's a comprehensive system, meaning no matter what student comes, we've got to figure out a way for that student to learn. We have to move away from trying to create a system that says, this is our system, we've got to try and fit all our students within that system, knowing full well that we've got so many different types of students. So I want the public to trust us based on the fact that we understand that we have to meet our students where they are. We have to design systems that fit the students, not a system that not design a system and then try and fit the student in there. And so when you send your child to public school, you can be rest assured that the philosophy within the public school system with our reform is that we will create a system that fits your student. So your child can be the best possible person that they can be. Now, we're not saying everyone's going to be a genius. We're not saying everyone's going to be the entrepreneur. We're not saying everyone's not going to pass. We have to create those opportunities for our children to utilize the skills that they have. And this is what education reform is about. And this is why I want the public to trust us to move it along, because we recognize where we've fallen down in education and created a system that has the inequalities that it has in it right now.
Right. Carla and I have a lot of questions, but of course this show is about the audience. So I definitely want to get through as many questions from the audience as possible. Sean Smith asks, with the reductions of students enrolling in public education, will there be any job losses? Well, I want to take it a step further. With the specialized schools, will teachers have the opportunity to get specialized certifications to teach at them, or will they be out of luck?
The answer to that question is it is a tentative yes and a tentative no on each side. Obviously, with senior schools adding signatures, there is going to be opportunities for teachers to train. There are going to be opportunities. There are going to be multiple opportunities that should be created. We're at the point now where we're developing what those signatures will be, and once those signatures are developed, then the professional development to be able to interact and be able to teach with at those signatures comes into place. So to talk about what exactly those jobs will be, to talk about what exactly the signatures will be, is premature at this particular point. When we come back in about 2 or 3 months, we'll have a much better picture of what those signatures are, what the type of training is. The idea, Jamal, for the teacher training is we want to have the signatures need to be sorted out before the end of the school year, so the teachers will have an entire year of training before the signatures come into play in September 2022. So that is the plan. As you know, sometimes plans don't work out exactly how you want, but that is the plan as we see it now. In terms of teacher losses, we cannot any sort of redundancies or anything that has to happen has to be done through the collective bargaining agreement that we already have in place with the Bermuda Union of Teachers and the BPSU when it comes to principals, and of course BIU when it comes to custodians. So to say that will there be losses, that's not something that we could say yes to. That's not something that we could say no to. I can't promise either way, but I do know that there will be opportunities for our teachers to retool, opportunities for our teachers to skill up, because part of reform as well looks at what the requirements are to be a teacher in the system. What additional skill sets, what additional certifications you'll need to be a teacher in the 21st century, and we have to give our current teachers the opportunities to get those skill sets in order to be more productive than they are now in our system.
Alrighty. Carmen Mitchell Jones asks, in reference to the gap, were they created by the middle school system or closing the schools for special needs students?
That is an interesting question in reference to the gap. In the gap, as I spoke about it, was part of it is the parents just not trusting the system. The other part was, remember, the middle school system was put in place because they wanted to eliminate the +11 exam. Carla, you said you remember that school system where you set that exam at 11 years old. Whatever score you got qualified you for the type of school, the type of high school that you could attend. And so what the thought process back then was, we're not even preparing our children to have decisions on what their future plans would be. So how can we kind of herd them into different categories at 11 years old based on an exam? And so the idea was have middle school, have a chance to grow, have a chance to understand what life is about, and then off to senior schools, which would essentially be identical and provide all of these resources that you need. And so the system in theory, the system sounds really great. It just, in my opinion only, it just wasn't implemented as well as what we're trying to implement. Now, in terms of special schools, inclusion has always, the data research shows that inclusion is the best way to treat students with special needs. What you want is a child with special needs to be in a system that is the most least restrictive based on the needs of the children. And so you'll have varying degrees. For example, within our school system now, we have schools that will deal with children that's hard of hearing. We have schools that will deal with children that may have visual impediments. We have classes within our main schools that deal with ASD program, behavioral issues, and things like that. And then of course, we have Dame Marjorie B. and Hope Academy that does children with severe exceptionalities. I don't believe that system has caused any gaps. If anything, it's actually caused our students, especially our students that may have exceptionalities, to be more productive than what they would have been if they were just in one particular school themselves.
All right. Got a very interesting question. Carla John says, will students/parents be able to choose the high school they wish to attend based on the programs the school has available, or will students attend high school based on where they live?
Okay, and that is a very good question. Let me start at the primary school, because one of the things we talked about was this primary school and the parish concept. With primary schools, it'll still be you'll still be schooled by zones. The same process we have now, just we are proposing to have less primary schools for you to choose from. The way the signature school concept, we're opening with Berkeley and Cedar Bridge in 2022. The intention is to have 3 more signature schools spread out throughout the island, so to make for a total of 5 high schools. The attendance of what school that you are is something that we're still working on, because we still have, as I talked earlier about this gradual change, we still only have two. We still will only have two high schools in 2023, and the process of selecting those high schools now is random. You make an application for the school that you wish to attend. Some people wish to go Cedar Bridge. Some people wish to go Berkeley, and there is requirements based on the programs that are at each school. One has ASD programs, one has functional skills program, and the like. So the children that qualify for those programs are automatically directed, and in theory, the rest of them are randomly selected. What we are looking to do with the new system is at the primary level, that in the P7 and P8, the two last years of primary school, those years will be dedicated to a hybrid curriculum where you're not only just doing school, but you're getting that soft introduction to the signature concepts, and giving an opportunity to look at what is out there, what would be my calling, what is that I think that I would like. And then from that process, where the idea is that you'll have an idea of what signature school would be more suited to what it is that you are looking to do. Now, geographic locations will not be applied. So if the best school for you is in Somerset and you live in Hamilton Parish, why not go to Somerset? And so to answer that question quite succinctly, that there will be no geographic restrictions. You'll be able to go whatever school that suits you. The other thing that I do want to add on that, a caveat you did not ask, Carla, is if a signature that you're interested in is at another school, there will be opportunities for you to be at one school and still participate in a signature that may be in another school, because we know children do change their mind. Who knows? They may look at something, they may go to a school and say, after a while, I don't really like those signatures. You'll still be able to stay on your regular high school track and graduate. Or you're like, there's something over, I like what I'm doing here, but there's something over there I might be interested in. There'll be opportunities for you to experience that at that other school as well.
All right. Want to get through at least three more questions.
Sure. I'll be more succinct.
Tyra Simmons says, how will parents be held accountable? Too much emphasis is put on teachers, classroom management, and yet no management in the home.
That is an interesting question, and people ask that all the time. The education truly does begin when children arrive at school and end when children leave. But however, we do recognize that we as a community, and this is a good part of this, right? Because so many people look at, okay, government, how are you going to force a teacher how are you going to force a parent to be a better parent? We can put all the resources we want in place through the child development program. We have teacher parenting classes and that sort of thing. But and parents do sign up for them. Some parents don't. But the concept, when we go back to the parish primary school, the concept behind having a school within the parish is to have a building, a school that the entire parish can rally around and create more of a community feel. And this is where we feel some of that internal support for our children, or that external support for our children, can come from, because you're creating a more family feel. We're talking about, we want schools that become the hub of the community, schools that are used for community meetings, schools that are used for not just schooling, a building that is available 365 days a year for the community to use. So we can have things like parenting classes there. We can have resources for parents within the school system, within the school. So parents get used to actually, hey, I have a problem. I can now go to the school and actually talk to someone about that problem, versus let me just kind of figure it out. That question has all sorts of social economic connotations, all sorts of things within our community that do need to be solved. But one of the processes about our school reform is the discussion about what we need as wraparound services, and that includes what happens with our children outside of the school system, and getting to our parents who need that help, who may not know where to turn for that help.
Indeed. Shay Renee says, how will teachers be trained without the disruption of teaching?
That will have to be very carefully planned with the training for the signature programs, where that is things that we are in the process of starting to discuss. Because we're not just talking about training that's an hour every couple of weeks. We're talking about training that may require 1 day per week for a whole school term. And so that will have to be carefully planned out on how we do it. I look at it from this point. It's the minor sacrifices we do now will lead to the bigger goals that we need in the future. It's like training for anything. You got to give it up right now before you actually can see what that end goal is going to be. But knowing this is what the end goal this is what the end goal you want. But when you're ready to get out there and perform, all that training pays off, and everybody will be better for it when that does happen.
All right, and one final question from the audience. Royal Hartman says, are there any plans for a specialized school or program for children who have learning disabilities such as dyslexia?
The idea is and I talked about the signature schools and having 5 high schools. There are also plans to have 2 additional signature schools, one specifically for children with exceptionalities and one specifically for what we call alternative education. The school for children with exceptionalities will potentially include something for children with dyslexia and the like. As I mentioned earlier, the idea is to take children and put them in the most comfortable environment that they can tolerate based on what their afflictions are. And so we anticipate, and as all of us should, that the school for exceptionalities will have severe students such as DAME, because the idea is to expand DAME, but we'll also have programs for students that it makes sense to have a more intensive program there for a particular disorder that might exist. Get the student to the point, and the idea would be to get the student to the point where they can go back to mainstream. And so there will be this hybrid system that we have, whereas what we have now in place is, as I talked about, a comprehensive system and having to do what needs to be done. We have a student that shows up at a school that doesn't have a program. We're now scrambling around to try and create this program for that one student. You can see how that can be a draw on the resources, because it now takes away something from another school. And there might be one other child that has that same issue at a different school. So now you got 2 costly programs in place for two children at 2 different schools, whereas it'll make much more sense for us to create a more comprehensive program in one location. And so children can have that intensive work at that one location and then return to their school system. That 1 or 2 locations then return to their school system. And so the short answer to that is yes, we intend to have a signature school for exceptionalities. But the idea is that there will be varying degrees of how much time our students spend there, depending on their particular level of learning.
Minister, quick 30-second, short answer. The 2 current senior schools are both aided schools, so they have a degree of autonomy. How is the Ministry of Education going to ensure that these schools follow the blueprint because they have so much autonomy? So, because, yeah.
You're taking expect him to answer it in.
I was trying to be diplomatic.
That is an actually good question. Bit of clarification. Cedar Bridge is not an aided school. Berkeley is an aided hybrid school. Aided schools, the definition of aided schools in Bermuda are schools that own their own property, and government at some point back in the day when it said, hey, we need a school, can we use your school, and we'll provide you funding to operate your school, but we'll provide the direction on how the education is done. Berkeley is technically not an aided school, but it does, because they don't own the building. Government owns the building. We do provide a grant to both schools. Both of them have a board to run the physical building of the school, and they do have an actual say in how the education is done within the school. But there is input from the Department of Education as well. The idea is not to go in and take over how the particular school is run, because that's the purpose of having that board in place, because they're on site and they get to see the different nuances. As a matter of fact, there are meetings this week with the teams that is working on the signatures and the boards to start having that conversation on how the signatures will fit within the board, within the system, and hammer out some of those other details. The overall concept of signatures has been greatly accepted by both schools, both school boards, and both school leaderships. But we're now at the point that the legislation has passed, and we're starting to have the conversations on this is how it can work. And so understand what I said previously. It's not about us going in and just saying this is what you're doing and walk away. It's about a partnership, a collaboration.
Minister, just we're running out of time, but I just want to ask, obviously you're on to speak about the consultation. Just real quickly in 30 seconds or less, when does the consultation period close and what can people expect next?
Okay, what can people expect next? Right now, we're talking about the signature schools. What we want people to do is log on to the website Learning First BDA, and sign up to receive the various bits and pieces of information. There will be information on the signature schools. What we want people to do is read that information, download it, have a look, send in your query, send in your answers. Because of COVID, we're unable to have the face-to-face meetings that we would have normally planned. But there are opportunities for people to send in their comments, send in their suggestions through that process. Be on the lookout for announcements of Zoom meetings and the like, so you can further talk about these types of things. And we just want people to participate.
All righty. Minister of Education, Diallo Rabain, thanks again for stopping by. Obviously, we'll be speaking to you a lot going forward, a lot of things going on. Just know the door is open. And obviously the audience has a lot of questions. I don't know if you have time or someone in your office has time, but please feel free to go on the post and respond to some of the questions because we were not able to get through all of them. So it would be, I'd encourage you to, if someone in your office has time, to just communicate with our audience. But thanks again, and we look forward to having you back on sometime.
Well, thank you, Jamal Crackerjack Hardman and Carla Carmel Zul. I really enjoyed it this time.
I like that one.
I look forward to it. Carmel fits in so many different ways over there, Carla. So thank you guys. And Jamal, try Carla's popcorn. You might like it.
I thought I'd like it.
Have a good day.
All right.
All righty. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with the Daily Play, and Carla's going to give us some inspiration. Do not go anywhere. We have a doozy coming up. All right, welcome back to the big show. Thanks again to One Communications, Windows Medical House.
Jack Hartman.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one. All right, Daily Play time. Here we go. Help her out, folks. This is a very, very interesting question, not an easy one. Ruth Seaton James was the first woman and the first Black person to head a government department in Bermuda with her appointment as Registrar General and Parliamentary Registrar. That milestone in the island's long march towards racial and gender equality occurred on August 22nd of what year?
1968.
My goodness, Carla. You're not right, but you're close.
67. Okay.
You were close.
1972.
Okay.
71.
70.
Anyone
Give
it to me.
You literally went all around it, kind of almost.
Then 67, because I didn't go backwards. I went forward. I said 67, 70,
you said
71.
67.
So 69.
No.
Well, then it's
all right. I'll give the answer.
65.
No one knows it without Google. Ruth Seaton James was the first woman and the first Black person to head a government department in Bermuda with her appointment as Registrar General and Parliamentary Registrar. That milestone in the island's long march towards racial and gender equality occurred on August 22nd of 1966.
I'm proud of myself, though.
I'm actually proud you were very close. Ruth Seaton James is the auditorium that is at Cedar Bridge Academy. Previously, it was Devonshire Academy, and before that, Robert Crawford. I can't remember. Yeah,
it was a combo of both of these schools.
Yes, and she is the mother of Evelyn James Barnett, who was in media for many years and now at Bermuda College. Great story there. So if you, I do share this information on social media and show you the source where you can find out and learn more about Bermudian history, especially Black history. So that's why we share these daily plays. It's not just to make Carla look bad. Trust me.
Look good today.
It's to help us all. Any inspiration for us, Carla?
Turn your wounds into wisdom. Oprah Winfrey.
I like that one. I love it. I love it. Look, if you enjoyed the conversation today, don't forget to smash a like. Go onto YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the station. Hit that button for updates. Make sure you stay in touch with us. Another good one tomorrow, as we have another minister, 2 ministers in a row. That's a record. The minister, Tanae Furbert, Minister of Social
And seniors.
Seniors, yeah. I'm sorry, folks, but she'll be on tomorrow, so another good one expected. But don't forget, thanks again for make sure you like, give us a love, show us some reaction, let us know what you thought. I just want to ask this question before we head out and while Carla gives her final thoughts. Do you trust the government to get public education right? Just answer in the comments, yes or no. Do you trust the government to get public education right? Carla, final thoughts on today's episode.
Please, please weigh in. Your voice counts. Let's be a part of this consultation process for our children's future.
Mm-hmm. I'll say this much. I did ask the minister, how is the public supposed to trust you? I have my personal issues in terms of why, asking questions, why we should trust the government to get this right. And I just want people to be involved, get involved, and make your voices heard. And make sure that they're not doing what they believe is in the best interest, but of their government, but make sure that they're doing what we believe as a country is in the best interest of the students and our country. On that note, thanks again to our partners, Medical House, One Communications, and Lindos for ensuring that we're able to do this with you on a daily basis. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again tomorrow. She's Carla Zul. I'm Jamal Hartman. My friends, make it a great day. It looks like people just don't trust the government to get it right. I don't know, Carla. Peace.